regular basis. Not only in the financial groups I'm in, not in the BiggerPockets community, but face-to-face talking with people. And there are several different, I want to say, tiers of intellect when it comes to finances. Some people just never think about them and they have a perfectly normal, totally happy life. Some people hyper-focus on them for a few years so that you never have to think about them again. But there's a couple ways of looking at net worth where a mistake can make somebody make a choice that screws over their future. So, welcome to Tuesdays. Tuesday afternoons, 4 p.m. Pacific, here on Dion Talk Financial Freedom. I do live streams that generally last an hour or two, sometimes 3. I try to go as long as the questions last. And not everybody watches the long content. So I've been doing some shorts recently, and those are kind of fun. Hard to teach a concept, but I can present a concept. So I have 10 to 15-minute videos that I try to do 2 or 3 times a week for the people who don't like the longer content. So what I'm going to do here in a minute is I give a few minutes for people to realize that the live stream is on. Hopefully some notifications went out. So if you haven't hit subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, you might not get these. And what sucks with YouTube is sometimes you hit the notification bell and you don't get notified. That's a thing. So, I'm sure my sound is doing good here. I'm actually going to record a short video during this live stream. And then after I hit stop record on that, don't go anywhere because I'm actually going to do an outro. I'm going to say thanks for coming and end the video kind of thing. But I want the people who showed up to the live stream and missed the first few minutes to actually get all the content that's in that short. So if you're watching this in Futureland, howdy, you had options. You can watch the long one to see all the questions that came up. So this also gives you a chance to put some questions into the live chat so that I can answer them. And anybody who doesn't want to put questions into the live chat and be publicly flogged for whatever question you think would be embarrassing, I'm going to put my email and pin it in the comment to this video. So you can always email me a question and I can cover it in a future live without sharing your name. So we passed 30 people showing up. If my information earns it, I would appreciate it if you hit the like button. And I'm going to hit record and do this short video. See how short I can keep it. I should actually try to keep it short with my Sands of Iwo Jima timer here that my daughter got me. I had a thought. Oh, the shirt. There will be a question coming up with the shirt later that is going to involve either a giveaway of an hour or 55-minute call with me or a free audiobook. So hopefully you know where the shirt's from. Here we go. Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. Net worth mistakes. What are those mistakes that most people make every time net worth comes up? I'm going to cover 3 and then a bonus. The first mistake I hear often when net worth comes up is talking to somebody who's not an investor, who really hasn't focused on finances. And you talk about net worth, and they'll say something like, the first concept that is wrong is, if you have debt, you can't have a positive net worth. Now, as an investor, I know that you immediately went to how you can prove that wrong, but I want to talk to those people that maybe you as the investor know who isn't an investor. And I get where they're coming from. Some people have debt, like $5,000 on a credit card. They owe $5,000 and they carry that balance and they're slowly working on hopefully making it go down instead of going up. But if it's going up, or if it's at $5,000 and they have $2,000 in the bank, to that person, from their mindset, from their perspective on net worth, debt means they don't have a positive net worth. And so as an investor, you can kind of explain to the person that if you have debt, it's possible to actually have a positive net worth. What if you have $5,000 in credit card debt, but $7,000 in the bank? There are some people who do that. They feel more comfortable having a safety amount in the bank, but they still have credit card debt. Technically, they have a positive net worth because they owe 5 but have 7. So that kind of covers the first mistake of the non-investor just thinking that debt means you can't have a positive net worth. Now, if we take it to the investor side of the house, a lot of investors will tell you, you can actually have debt. You can have a lot of debt and have positive net worth. You can have millions in debt. I'm actually going to use an example, a real example out of memory, not off a spreadsheet. But the equation, what is net worth, is how an investor looks at it. Assets minus debt. So what they do is they go, I have assets and I'm going to take away the debt. So here's a quick example. I own in my portfolio, and this was about a year ago, so I haven't checked inflation and how it's affected appreciation and what the market in my area is doing, even though it's up like 5.6% from last year. So there is some adjustments to do here, which could be significant. But my net worth about a year ago was my gross value of my real estate portfolio. I have no bad debt, no auto loans, no credit cards, no student loans. So I have none of the debt except for debt on real estate. But the value of my properties was about $5.5 million. So $5 million, if I sold everything, that's the value of the properties. So an investor would go, well, how much debt do you have? Because it's assets minus debt, right? So I owe $1.8 million, or at least I did a year ago. There's been some principal pay down since then, not enough to make a significant change, like $3,000 a month or so, times 12 months, math. So $5.5 million minus $1.8 million leaves me $3.7 million. If you go off the base explanation of what is net worth, assets minus debt, $3.7 million. Sounds accurate, but there's two problems with this. First, if you own a business and you want to sell the business, you're going to have to pay a broker, your broker, to sell that business. If you own stocks and you want to sell stocks to figure out your net worth, you're going to have to pay a transaction fee. If you own real estate, you have the cost of selling. This is what people usually forget in the net worth equation, is in a really strong seller's market where buyers are paying most of the fees, you might pay 6% for agent fees. In a really strong buyer's market where the seller has to pay, you maybe concessions, repairs, buy down the rate for the buyer, you might pay up to 10%. So we average that out to 8%. So 8% is the average cost of selling real estate. So if I sold my real estate, it's not based on the 3.7 that I would have as my net worth. It's based on the 5.5 million of the gross value of my real estate. So 8% of 5.5 million, $440,000. So $440,000 goes away from my 3.7 million, leaving me with $3,260,000. Matt, the lumberjack landlord, would snap off some numbers. So $3,260,000 is what's left after the cost of selling. 8% went off to selling agent fees as an average. And some investors go, okay, you have the cost of selling, assets minus debt, leaving you from 5.5 million to 3.26 million. Forgetting that anytime money changes hands, the government sticks their hands in someone's pocket and taxes are going to be paid. Remember, we are not selling to 1031. Net worth is if you sold everything, assets minus debt and liabilities, what would be left? I would be paying capital gains tax. And let's just go off federal. Federal has a capital gains on up to 20%. If you sold everything all at once, you'd be in a high bracket, you'd probably pay 20%. If you're in a state like California and now Washington, you might have state capital gains tax. So you could even pay more. So figure out how it works locally when you do this mental exercise of figuring out your net worth. So 20% of 3,260,000 is almost the equation I go with, because we also have one more benefit if we've lived in any of our real estate for at least 2 of the last 5 years. You can't live in one place 1 year and one place at 1 year and one place 1 year. You have to pick one of those properties and have lived there at least 2 years out of the last 5. This triggers the IRS rule 121, where as a human, we get to avoid $250,000 in capital gains tax. As a couple, if you were married, not worth it. You get to do $500,000. So since I'm single, I would save the 250, which puts my taxable event at about 3 million at 20%. So 3 million at 20% is $600,000. My $5.5 million gross value of my properties, even though I had $1.8 million in debt, I'm going to pay 8% in selling fees and 20% to taxes. I walk away with around $2.4 million. That's how you would calculate net worth without skipping some of the steps. So those were the 3 mistakes. The first is the non-investor thinks if you have debt, you can't have a positive net worth. The investor usually forgets the cost of selling and then taxes. So those are the 3, and here's the bonus. Here's the one that somebody, I guarantee, has put into the comments. If they haven't, they will. Someday, net worth might matter to me. but not today. It's a fictitious made-up number. Who's actually going to sell off all of their properties just to see what they walk away with? Because money in the bank does a few things. Loses money to inflation, is spent over time. So no matter how much you have, you're eventually going to run out, because we invest for cash flow. Cash flow sets us free. I never have to work again because I have cash flow, not because I have net worth. If I didn't make YouTube videos, I would have no clue when I passed $1 million in net worth. It was in the same transaction as I acquired $1 million in debt. To talk to that first person who thinks you can't have a positive net worth if you have debt, because I hit $1 million in debt and $1 million in net worth on the same day, January 6th, 2020. I remembered something. So there is 1 or 2 times where net worth can be a factor that you need to know. 1, if you're making a YouTube video where you want to talk about it. 2, if you want to use something like a DSCR loan, or debt service coverage ratio loan, where your work history, your debt to income, all that kind of stuff doesn't matter, your credit score still applies, but the lender's going to look at how the asset that you're purchasing performs. And a requirement for some lenders, which can be a little different depending on the lender because they're not all made the same, is they require that you have 50% of the value of the loan in your personal net worth, or you have 100% of the value of the loan in your personal net worth. And so to do that, you'll fill out a personal financial statement. I had actually never done one because all of my properties are from the MLS with conventional loans. And I was going to do I applied for my first DSCR loan because I was going to use the 50-40-10 strategy, or looking at 40-year fixed rate loans from Convoy Home Loans. And to do that, they would go up to 8 units, but they would need my net worth to be either 50% or 100% of the loan that I was borrowing. So since I have $2.4 million in net worth, because on their equation, they don't calculate taxes and the cost of selling. So my actual net worth to them was $3.7 million. But if I actually do the math, what does it come down to when we actually do the equation right? It's $2.4 million for a loan of, I think it was 800,000 or something, or 1.1 million. So I definitely had more than 50%, more than 100%, more than 200% of the value of the loan. When you calculate your net worth, it is a mental exercise, unless you're doing something like a DSCR loan where the lender might care. But for the rest of us, the mistake is thinking that it matters. And I did it in less than 17 seconds. If you're here in my live stream, where this video came from originally, hello Futureland, don't leave, because I'm going to do an outro. I hope this video at least made you think. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk. At least I hit the right button and I didn't kill the live stream. I think I hit the right button. We're still here. If you're not here, raise your hand. Howdy, everybody. Hope you're having a good week. I have a guest who might pop in later, Millennial Mike. I think he was doing some training, so we'll see when he gets off and shows up. For those of you who don't know Millennial Mike, when he shows up, he wears a first responder, single parent with a 6-year-old who is house hacking a duplex in a high cost of living area, but invests in a portfolio out of state, uses some strategies I'm not familiar with and can't talk on. So I really like it when he pops in because he's got information I don't have. He's also taller, younger, cuter, funnier, like a couple things about him that are kind of cool. Dividend Dave, howdy, Ninja Vanish. I think I put in here in one of the chats, tell me where you're from. So hopefully people got that message. All-Nighter Hider, the Yoder, Bill, howdy. Best 2 to 3 hours of info. Thank you very much. It should be 2 to 3 hours of info. That's the goal. Peter, howdy. Tom, good to see you guys. Bill, I'm small, but the power of property is amazing. Only 4 units. I like to get to 10 units. Yeah. One rental at a time. Michael Zuber often talks about the power of getting to 4, right? Your life is absolutely different if you have 100 and something like he does or the lumberjack landlord does, but it's such a big number. How do you focus on getting there? If you just get to 4, this is when you start to see appreciation, principal pay down, cash flow, the income snowball starts to come in. So for some people that can be 2 to 4 years. Some people that can be 6. It was a while for me. I think I saw a super chat here. Yes, which I appreciate because that kind of lets the world know that a live stream is going on and Google pushes this out. Matt, Bob, howdy. Rent $1,850. Tenant sent $1,200 before late fees and sending $650 Thursday due to dad in hospital. Refund and do a notice to vacate or wait until a month to see if they pay. How would I handle it? It's a good question. It's a kind of a terrible position to be in because knee-jerk reaction is dad's in hospital, justifiable reason for rent to be late. Did they notify you in advance? What is your late fee structure like? My late fee and structure in my leases is $20 a day. So rent is due, let's hypothetically say the first. Not all of mine are due on the first. Sometimes I negotiate with the tenants on their pay. I have one who's retired, fixed income, comes in on the third. So their rent or their lease says due on the fourth. Then I have 5 days where there's no real impact to the tenant. But after the fifth day, it's $20 a day increase. So will the rent be late based on your lease at that time? I wouldn't refund the $1,200. I would put it in a holding account and send an email, because emails are admissible in court, saying that I have not collected the rent. The $1,200 is being held in an account until you pay the final amount. If you have trying to figure out, because it's going to sound like advice. I'm trying to think, what would I do, right? Not what I'm telling you to do. Has the tenant ever been late before? Does the tenant have the awareness from this conversation? So I've had a few tenants reach out and say, I have this life issue going on. I need to pay you late. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to pay you this much. I'm going to pay you late or part later or whatever, kind of a similar scenario. It's never happened because I have this conversation. So I tell the tenant two things. First, I'm going to serve you with an eviction notice. This helps you because, and so it's a benefit to the tenant to be served an eviction notice, because that qualifies them for rental assistance. If they're not served, most agencies won't start the process to help them with rental assistance. Two, it keeps everything documented just in case they don't pay later. It doesn't start when they didn't pay. It starts when the rent was late based on your lease. And you tell them, here's why I don't want you to pay something late. A portion of it or all of it, because, and this is something most tenants haven't thought all the way through. Normally, a tenant has a little over 4 weeks. February, you maybe even have less, right? Whatever 4 weeks long is, to get the rent together for the next month. If you have an issue in your life, which makes you have to pay late, so if this is going to be a week late, all of it late, or a portion of it a week late, that means you only have 3 weeks to get next month's rent together. Because remember, the tenant is looking at internet, car payment, cell phone, food, rent, daycare, whatever their expense, their whole list of expenses. You're the one they picked because you are a human with a heart and they think they can play on that. So you want to keep it official, stick with what's in the lease, let them know that this is a benefit, because with this eviction notification, you can go and possibly qualify for some other state benefits. But if you pay on time, then the eviction process can stop, because what part of the eviction process is giving the tenant the ability to make payments to come up with a missing portion. So the court isn't just going to kick somebody out. They're going to say, did you try to put a payment plan in place? So the eviction helps them and it sets up a payment plan. Second, have that conversation with them that you're really setting them up to fail if you allow them to pay late, because it reduces the amount of time between when the payment is made and when the next rent check is due. So I've had that conversation with several tenants over the last decade. And consistently, they chose that the rent was important enough to pay because they didn't want to get set up to fail for the hoard. I hope that helps, Matt. There isn't a right answer. Some people will be cold and calculating and say, you just stick to the lease, you refund the money, you say you're being evicted, and you're just done. But you are human with a heart. And they did pick the right person to negotiate with. This is an ongoing process. The larger your portfolio is, the less flexible you're more likely to be. You're probably going to have property management in place, and they just follow the rules. But me, I self-manage my 16 rentals. I have had that conversation with several tenants where I explain, here's how it's going to go, and here's why I don't think you should do it, because it's setting you up for failure next month. Good question. You have to let me know how that goes when I pin my email in the comments after the live stream. Send me an update. Foobar Snafu. Howdy, my lover of acronyms. The kind I love too. Thank you very much for the super chat. Let me see if I can help with your question here. Closing on my first property because of you and Zuber. That is awesome. It's a fourplex. Congratulations. With 23K net cash flow and long-term renters. Do you have a video series on how to get second property and when to update rental deck needs fixed in a few years, replace now or wait? So it's almost the same scenario I had when I purchased my fourplex. The decks could have been replaced, but I hired a handyman to do repairs and work next to them to actually learn some of the substructure of how decks are put in. And then you have a handyman or a contractor to look at the decks to tell you, is this going to be a safety issue or can I repair it to a point where it's safe? So I don't know that I have a video to answer when to get the second rental. I do have a one on how to get multiple mortgages, how you're going to be able to qualify for the next loan, how rental income on your tax returns can impact your ability, how your debt to income ratio can be figured out differently by different lenders, and how the rent from the property that you're in and sometimes the property you're purchasing. One of the things I suggest is going for at least year-long leases, because some lenders, in order to use the rents of where you're at, the properties you have and the property you're purchasing next, is that there's at least 3 months remaining on your leases. And the first time I heard that from a lender, I was a little confused. And anytime you're confused, I ask questions. I said, why would you let me make a 30-year commitment because my tenants have made a 3-month commitment? And the lender said, well, we're going to do the loan. We're not going to keep it. And so far, I've only had one loan that the original lender kept more than a month. They were all within like 3 or 4 days. I've got notice of, here's the new owner of your mortgage and how you pay it. They sell it almost immediately. So they want to know that there's 3 months in case they keep it for a while. They're more likely to get paid for that period of time. So 3 months or more remaining on leases. Now, if you're closing on your fourplex, that doesn't mean I go in right away and use the binder strategy to get rents to where I want them and go for the long leases, right? The long lease is a benefit of mine, but I don't want to commit to a long lease, especially if you're buying this fourplex and you didn't get to vet these tenants. You don't know their credit scores, you don't know their work histories, and knowing that really isn't going to help. You're bound by the existing lease, so you can't just come in and go, okay, I'm your new landlord. Now you have to go and file another application, right? Most states probably don't allow that, but you can take 2 months to vet the tenants. Take those 2 months to see if these 3 things happen. These are the 3 things that matter to me, and if these 3 things are the way I want them to be, then I want to go for the longer lease. It also has a second benefit. So for those first 2 months, you're vetting the tenants, seeing if they pay their rent on time, right? That's why we're in this business, we collect the rents. You don't get noise complaints from the neighbors, especially in a fourplex. And they don't call you for super trivial things. That doesn't mean they don't call you if there's like a drawer that's not working. They should be calling you for that. But if they're calling you for multiple things that could be an email or a text or whatever, they need educated on the 3 words that they can call you for. If those 3 things are good, then at the 2-month point, I go and have the binder strategy conversation to get the rents where I want them and to get the longer lease. Remember, you are bound by the current existing leases. So if there's more months remaining on that, you can do the binder strategy talk, but have the changes in effect when that lease ends. If you're on month to month, know what your local regulations are. For Washington, it's like you have to give 90 days if you're going to move in or do a rehab, 60 days if you're going to do a rent increase above 10%, and 20 days if you're not going to renew the lease. Like there's some weird laws that you need to look up. Whenever you go to do something like that, look up what the current laws are, because they do change. Washington's changed last year, which is why I hesitated on saying what they were, because I might have been wrong. So don't go off of that. GTS, Google that stuff. The other benefit to waiting 2 months is you're going to, this is how I do it. So you saying you're going to was a mistake. Here's what I do. I replace the locks with coded locks. So the tenants like not having keys. I don't have to worry about who has prior keys, what prior tenants, prior handyman, prior owners could have access, because now I have coded locks in place. I replace exterior lights with motion sensor LED lights from like Amazon. They're like $30, $35. They're brighter. They take less energy. It updates the security on the place. And then I actually ask the tenants. This is a question that I asked that my first agent told me never to ask, because he was afraid my tenants might ask for something big, but they never have. I asked the tenants, if you owned the place, like tomorrow you were the owner, what's the first thing you would fix? Right? And my agent was like, well, they could say, I want to add a bedroom or pave the driveway or something huge. Tenants have always asked for something like, if we had a screen door, I could leave the door open in the summer. If the ceiling fan squeaks, I'd like a new one. So you spend a couple $100, you put in the locks, you put in the lights, you fix the repairs that the tenants ask for within reason. So at the 2-month point, when you actually go in and have the binder conversation, that that strategy that gets the tenant to ask you to raise the rent. If you're not familiar with that, just because I don't recognize the name, it's on this channel. Just look up Binder Strategy Dion Talk, and you'll see there's like a 20-minute video that's the full tutorial on this is exactly how you get your tenants to ask you to raise the rent. Do that, and the conversation is more likely to go well because the tenant knows you're going to take care of the place. You've made some repairs. And generally, when you buy a place like this, one of the reasons it's sold is the older owner might have been trying to get out of the business, less attentive, not fixing things, right? So the tenants have kind of felt neglected, and now you're here to fix things. So the conversation goes a lot better. Hope that helps. And I saw another super chat here from Tom. Howdy. Money for the shirt. Yes. I was at an event in Portland, and someone commented on my original shirt. I had both characters on the shirt, and he said it was something he watched me when he was a kid, and he enjoyed it, and so I gave him the shirt, and I think it freaked him out. Give your shirt to people. It's weird. Now I know. Things you learn. So thank you for that, and congratulations on the fourplex. That is an awesome. Dave, I'm making a delivery to your location tomorrow, and I'm on my way right now. Nice. We should get together. Located in Delaware. That sounds like a real place. I was talking with somebody the other day on why the 13 colony states are so small. And I was thinking like they were formed when the modes of transportation were mostly foot. We didn't even have a lot of horses here. And then the bigger states are the further you get west. And not railroad state related, but my memory works weird. Kenzie Theork. Howdy. Have to pick up Dion's golden nuggets. Good. Hopefully I drop a lot for you. Hola, Jimena. ¿Cómo está usted? Laura, good evening, everyone. Make sure to allow notifications within the YouTube app under app info. That might be one of the issues we're having. One of the other issues is the members doesn't show up on Apple devices, right? So you have to get onto a laptop or something to do that. And I think the plan this weekend is a members only live on Saturday for those people who can't make the ones that have been on Friday, because it's, it's during the week, and every day is Saturday for me, but not for everybody else yet. We're getting you there. It's the whole point of this, is to get you to where work is optional, and you can do things like waste time on your days off, which is every day. What happened to TPS? TPS, it must be in the laundry. It's usually right here. I have like 10 of those shirts. And I don't know, I might take a poll on retiring that shirt, because that's the actual nonprofit that I founded, which doesn't, it is not short for anything. Literally a nonprofit is TPS. You can check it out at hiddenjobs.org. I did TPS because I wanted to ask for TPS reports. That's why the actual logo is a stapler. So like the red stapler, it's my inside, not inside joke. But I haven't worked there now in 6 months, because the nonprofit went tied to the CDL school that I used to work at. Actually gave the entire ownership to them. Laser Focus Solutions. Howdy. I know dividends. Yes, that's why we're here. Real estate pays dividends. Stocks pays dividends. Learning pays dividends. Yes, Ninja Vanish, that is exactly who it is. All-nighter hider. Productive self-liquidating debt is a beautiful thing. Explain that to me. Bill, I didn't know who the shirt was, but thanks to others you know now. That's my job, educating people. So the question is, what are we doing tonight, brain? Layla, I'm in the financial industry. Dividends are near and dear. Yes. Absolutely. I think I'm not a stock guy, so I actually don't want to be a stock guy. I don't want the stress of what happens to a portfolio, right? If you hear tech, Fortune 500, blue chip. You hear all these things that I don't know what they are, so I'm not going to comment on them, but they're up 7%. They're down 20%. That is a vertical pong with my money that I don't want to happen. Since we've started tracking the data in 1940, rents have never once in a 5-year period gone down market-wide. That lets me sleep like a baby. That doesn't mean it's real estate for everyone. It means that if you're into stocks, I think you might enjoy a little bit of that self-torture of every morning waking up to see what's happened in the market. And the term bloodbath has applied to real estate probably 2 or 3 times in the last century. But stocks, almost 2 or 3 times a year, something could be referred to in stocks as a bloodbath. All-nighter hider. I wonder if laws have to be in the Federal Registry. Where is Title 26 in the Federal Registry? No clue. You're the legal guy. I'm the guy who hires the legal people. Kind of like Matt does all the work, self-managing his rentals. I don't want to. I'm happy to pay somebody to do stuff at my places. We are all first responders. Some are trained, some are not. Some are avoidant of those kind of things. John, howdy. Glad you're here. Kenzie from Boston. Nice. You're close to the lumberjack landlord. And John is from Dallas. Bill's from Kansas. I like this. I like seeing where people are from. I joined the Marines right out of high school, basically. Went to a bunch of countries, and until like 2 or 3 years ago, I had been to 7 states. And then, what was it, 2021, took a month and hit, I don't know, at least 30 states. So, Evolve Properties, LLC. Howdy. Curious how first responders are attracted to real estate investing. Most of them aren't, right? So there's a significant portion of millionaires through real estate are teachers. That's just a significant portion, right? But that doesn't mean most teachers invest in real estate. It just means that there are many that are successful. I'm trying to think. My department was small when I was there. I was in 2 departments. One, there was 5 officers, 3 reserves, and the other one there was 24 officers, 2 not officers, but not reserves. So it's small departments. I liked working in a small department because, you pretty much handle a case unless it crosses state lines, start to finish. Whereas if you're in a bigger department, if it requires a camera, you're calling a detective, right? So I kind of like that. I don't think any of the officers in my departments invested in real estate. I think it seems like it because when I talk to Millennial Mike, he's currently a first responder, financial firefighter in Hawaii, first responder. Mark Matsky retired as a first responder. So, I mean, there's all these people that we kind of know, but that doesn't mean that very many are. I think most of the people working in law enforcement are working for a pension. Most people working for municipalities in a lot of different positions are working for a pension. They actually think that 5 years I can get 10%. Every year after that, I can add 2% to what I can make, or whatever the pension thing is. They're still under that mindset. I do think first responders that get involved in real estate do well because they have a litigious mind. To become a police officer, I know nobody believes this, but you're pretty much an attorney. You have to know the laws to such an extent to know what you can and can't do at an event in current time. You generally can't stop something and say, let me pull out my Parkett RCW code and see if I'm allowed to. Right, you have to know the basic laws. Somebody else that does really well in real estate is engineers. Kind of like our Tony I did an interview with last week. He can build bridges and blow them up. But engineers, structural engineers too, software engineers, have the logical, analytical mindset of going through step-by-step processes where sometimes when I explain something, to me, it seems really simple. I can explain a cash-on-cash return to, like, my brother, who's very smart, ran a business, invested, has 10 paid off rentals, been retired for 8 years already. He's retired at 50. He's doing whatever he wants. Very smart person. But if I try to explain a cash-on-cash return, I just get the blank stare. Maybe with a whiteboard and some, very rounded numbers, I could probably get the concept across because it's in my head as the way I invest. Cash-on-cash basically tells me everything. And he didn't do that. He took out a home equity line of credit, purchased a property really cheap, $60,000 or so, spent $10,000 or $20,000, fixed it all up himself, paid off the HELOC, and rinsed and repeated. So he never had the idea of a return on his investment. It was, if I own a rental, and it's paid off, and I fix it up really nice, and I'll get rents, and I can retire. Like, it was really a different way of looking at it. But you put an engineer in this, and if you saw the video, Tony's spreadsheet, literally, not only did it say, okay, here's how you can calculate the yield and how you can change your expenses and how you can look at different things like your down payment, your closing costs, all of those things. On the right was a checklist, like the logic order of how you're going to do this. So I think some first responders have that, right? I don't know if anybody here works for a municipality, works as a first responder, but you get your NIMS training. So your National Emergency Management System comes in, and whenever there's an event, hurricane, flood, earthquake, bomb threat, whatever, there is a structure to how you're going to respond as a city. And your command post is going to be ran by the person who makes the most sense for the event, right? The chief of police is not going to be the one in charge of an earthquake problem, right? They're involved. They're in the NIMS program, but that logic structure of just training of this is how the world works that most people never even think of, I think is really easy to associate it to real estate, right? You're going to learn how to save, which means increase your income, decrease your spending. And how are the ways you can increase your income? Once you do that, you're going to work on your credit score. These are the things you can do in your credit score to improve that. These things can be done at the same time. Once you've done that, you've learned how to save, you've developed saving, and you have your credit score where you want it. Now you talk to a lender to find out what your options are. Like the logic chain to get there for somebody who is trained to think that way seems obvious. There are people who don't think that way, who do fine in real estate, but they just don't think that way. Like my brother, he would never think, this is the steps I'm going to do to get into real estate. He was like, I've saved up enough to get this line of credit on my house so I could buy a rental. Like that was the end of the thought process. But he was still successful. So, financial fighter, aloha. Name sounds familiar. Laura, you're from South Florida, yes. Million, howdy. Back after 4.5 months off to East Africa. I'm back to Tuesday live chat. Nice. Well, I hope it was a good trip. I was going to say I've been to Africa, but I think a few of the countries I went to were in Africa, like Saudi. That's in Africa, right? Like I went to school in America, so we don't learn geography. The Yoder. When talking about unit count, do you count the apartments or the buildings? I have 4 houses, 8 apartments. What do until I can buy another? So when we talk units, that means how many leases would you have, basically. So if you own a house that has 5 bedrooms and you rent by the room, you can call that 5 units. It's one house on one property. If you have a duplex, 2 bedrooms each side, that can be 2 units. Or if you rent by the room, it could be 4 units, right? So it's a loose terminology, because lenders don't ever go, how many units do you have? Okay, this is how much you can borrow. They'll say, what's your income? What's your expenses? What's your net profit? What's your debt to income ratio? All those kind of things. So they'll go through what you can prove with leases too, on top of that. So unit count is kind of like when people talk about area of neighborhood, class A, class B, class C, class D. There's not a hard, strict definition, but there is something that you can feel, this defines what I'm looking for or not wanting to invest in. So it's not clearly defined. Units is how many leases you would have. So if you own a duplex and you're renting them out by the unit, then that would be 2. A fourplex would be 4. But you'd have 1 property. So for example, I own 16 rental units on 7 properties with 6 mortgages because I have 1 paid off, which was a mistake. So here's what you do until you can get another. There is a video on my channel called To Retire Early with Rental, 6 steps to retire early with rental. So whether you don't own a rental at all, or you have a set number of units, the steps almost go exactly the same. You are always learning how to save, which is increase income, decrease expenses. At some point, you reach stabilization where you have enough. Good luck on figuring out what that is. But once you have enough, you're not in growth mode. You might focus on debt pay down. You might focus on something else. But when you're adding units, it's the property. So you're learning how to save, increase income, decrease expenses. You always want to be keeping wow, my grammar is awesome. I'm very disappointed in my grammar. You always want to continue to work on and protect your credit score, because even with a DSCR loan or an asset-based loan where your work history, your debt to income ratio don't matter to the lenders as much, they do check your credit score. At least some of the lenders for some of the loan products will check your credit score. So those two things you're always working on. The third thing, the third step to buying is talking to a lender, right? When you don't have any rentals and you talk to a lender, they can give you some advice like the one that I talked to that said, look, you have a bad debt to income ratio, you have low income, you're not going to buy a rental unless you had rental income on your tax return somehow, so we could use the rental income on the property you were buying. And I was like, oh, wait, break that down for me. And they said, yeah, if you had rental income on your tax returns, that means that you are an established landlord that knows how to find a tenant, screen a tenant, place a tenant, maintain a property for a couple of years. Then we can look at a property that you're buying as a rental and include that money in your debt to income ratio. Kind of fixes your salary problem, fixes your debt to income ratio problem. So I was able to buy a duplex after renting my house out for 2 years. I wouldn't know that unless I talked to a lender, right? So that's the beginning, first person that doesn't own any rentals. If you have 10 units, so wait, hang on, you said 4 houses, 8 apartments. So you have 8 units in 4 houses, sounds like duplexes, right? Or it could be townhomes or whatever you have. The lender will tell you what your options are. They might say something like, you can borrow this much money unless you had more in reserves. If you had more in reserves, we would increase the amount that you can borrow. So now, if you wanted to borrow more, focus on your reserves. They could say, for a DSCR loan, if you wanted to go for, more than 4 units and you weren't going to do residential lending, they could say, we need the property that you're purchasing to have 110% of the income coming in as the debt. So now you can look and go, okay, how much do I need to put down to get the ratio to where the income from the property will get me to what the lender needs? Like you don't know those options until you actually talk to the lender to figure out which is the right way to go. Those steps are always the same. Brand new person with no rentals, somebody with 10 units or 8 units. After that, now it's figuring out strategy. What you purchased in 2018 might not be the asset class to go for now. Maybe you were buying single family houses then and they don't cash flow now, so you have to go to small multifamily. Or you were looking at small multifamily then and they don't cash flow now, so now you start looking at houses with ADUs. So you eliminate some of the competition because investors forget to search for ADUs because they're looking for small multifamily, which the listing agent might not even put out there. And home buyers don't want to buy something with a second property because they're not looking to have tenants. So you can look at different asset classes, but you don't really know that until you continue to work on those 3 steps. And that never really stops. Like, I'm going to say it out loud, and believe me or not, I have enough. I am not in growth mode. It took 8 years to reach financial independence, and then I worked for 4 years, and I reached financial freedom. So 4 times the amount of my freedom number coming in every month that I don't have to sell my life for 1 hour at a time. Don't compare my year 12 to your year 1. If you're in growth phase, you should be aggressively looking for the next great deal, right? Or good deal, even base hit. Should be making those deals. Once you have enough, now I can actually look at different things, diversifying into different asset classes to protect the wealth that I've made, paying down debt, which is a terrible return on your money, paying all cash for a property, doing a BRRRR with my own money so I don't have to cash out and refinance or deal with hard money that has a timeline. Like all of those options open up because I'm not in such a I want to grow mode. But you don't know that unless you're constantly working on all those things across. It's you're learning to save, you work on your credit scoring, talk to a lender to find out your options, and then be reviewing the asset strategies that fit where you are in your investing timeline. I think I saw another Brian. Howdy. Thank you for that. Watching from your truck. Well, don't wreck. Be very careful. I keep having comments of the shorts that I'm doing while I'm driving. I'm like, I could be on private property, driving on a dirt road that just looks like a freeway. Thank you for that, Brian. I appreciate it. Dustin, howdy. Glad I finally made a live chat. I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you. I appreciate it too. Hopefully, if you have any questions, or sometimes you just learn from the questions other people are asking. I watch some content where I'm trying to learn things, and I watch live streams as well. Sometimes the question that a person asks tells us what we needed to ask ourselves. So it's good too if you're not even asking questions. Jay Aguilar, howdy. Can you talk about yield? So yield is, and I get corrected often by Michael Zuber because he has an accounting degree, right? He's actually works, has the education in the field. So when you talk about yield, it is the technical terms can get confusing. People will say profit. Profit includes principal pay down, appreciation, like all of these things that aren't calculated in a cash on cash return when we're talking real estate. So we use the word yield or cash on cash return interchangeably, even though we're not counting principal pay down and depreciation. Because at the beginning of this video, which I also recorded for a video that I will take out and use later, I talked about net worth doesn't matter, right? And so principal pay down and appreciation can disappear like it did in 2009. What doesn't disappear, if you're investing the right way, the correct way, safer way, is cash flow. So when we talk about yield or cash on cash return, it's a really simple equation, which I am saying at the 46th minute of the video. So if you want to come back and hear this again, 46 minutes. I think I also have a short on this, but they're hard to find sometimes. Cash on cash return is a very simple equation. Annual profit divided by cost to acquire, right? Profit is all of your income. So rent, pet fees, laundry, whatever you can chart, parking, whatever you could possibly be getting money from on a unit. And for me, almost universally, that's, I don't charge for parking or any of that other stuff, but there are some places where you do. So I'm trying to be inclusive. All of your money that comes in minus expenses. So principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So if you have a mortgage, it's going to be PITI. If you don't have a mortgage, it's going to be taxes and insurance. So those expenses come out. And we take out money we set aside for future expenses. I do 5% for vacancy, even though I've never had one. I think the longest one was 4 days, but we take it out because we could have an extended one. And 10% for repairs and maintenance. So 15% of gross rents when I'm running the yield calculation is set aside into the expenses to come out of the profit. Figure that out for every month, times by 12, gets you annual profit. Cost to acquire, some people, when they're just starting out, they think down payment. But it's down payment, closing costs, and money for immediate repairs. That could be the burn rate that you have each month if you have to carry a property while it's being rehabbed for a few months. If you use something like you purchase it to do a BRRRR, you have a burn rate through that. So your cost to acquire is everything that it costs to get that property. So your profit divided by your cost to acquire. So if you spend $100,000, you invest $100,000, you move it from the bank into the property, your closing costs, immediate repairs, the purchase, 25% down, all of that's $100,000, and you're going to profit $10,000 a year. Say 10% cash on cash return. If you're going to benefit, if you profit $20,000 a year, 20% cash on cash return. So profit divided by cost to acquire. Yield is the first metric we generally look at if we're looking at a property. We look at the price, we know the rates, and we know the rents, because there's three things that go into that. So we figure out what is average in our area, right? And you want to beat that. You want to get at least the top end of that, if not better. So that you know you're not buying a bad deal in that market. After that, yield's just the first step, because after that, we look at all of the other things. Is it in a neighborhood that I want to own a property in, can safely go there, can feel comfortable sending a handyman there or a property manager there? Are there enough economic drivers close to that property to justify buying it, so that if it's next to a paper mill in Port Angeles, Washington, and it's the only source of income and the paper mill closes, what do? 20, 30 years ago, that's what that town looked like. Now it's more of it has a more industry, more tourist stuff, more other things going on. So you can buy a property there, have different economic drivers. So I like something like a base, a port, a college, hospital, Boeing or Amazon, or large company, something that attracts people like a beach or a lake or something. Large population, 100,000 or more, right? And it doesn't have to have all of those. It has to have 3 or 4 of those or more, so that if something happens like the base closes down, you don't just lose all of your tenants all at once. Rents probably take a hit, but you're not going to sink. And then in the beginning, when we're first acquiring property, so first we looked at yield, then we looked at are there economic drivers. The third thing I look at is when it was really small, I didn't want to be too close to my other properties. If I was buying in a little town called Yelm, Washington, which has like 1.8 economic drivers, right? You're close enough to commute to a couple of other things. I didn't want to own 2 or 3 places in Yelm. I own one, and then town over Tumwater, town over Lacey, town over Spanaway, town over McKenna. Like they're all kind of spread out in the beginning. I think once you have 2 or 3 rentals and you have your diversified tenant type and location, maybe then you can buy a property that's close to it. And I do know some people that like, I want to buy every rental on a street. I own the street. I control the street. It's not how I want to do it, but it works for some people. So again, yield is first calculation, then you follow it down with all of the other things. And most of that happens in an investor's mind in maybe a minute, right? I want to say seconds, but it probably takes a minute to go, where is this property? Look on the map. Oh, it's close to McKinley and Tacoma, and delete, right? And or you know it's in like a little town in McKenna, Washington, which has less than 700 population. I saw a rental, yield looked good, but it's a small town. Far enough away from my other properties, close enough to by commuters, and it's on the side of military base, on the rural side of a military base. So it was worth pursuing. But if all those other things around that town didn't exist, I probably would have passed it up. So yield is important. Yield matters, but it's one step in the process. And then Laura took back a message to make me lose sleep and wonder forever what it was. John, I'm doing the learning, the research, and the savings to purchase my first duplex, hopefully this year. But I also have about $50K in a separate retirement account, not my 401k, that I might use too. I don't recommend touching retirement accounts on your first deal. The closest I would come to that is lenders will look at 50% of that retirement account as a reserve. So you don't have to tap it, take it out, or anything like that. You just have to prove that it's in there. It's been in there for a few months, so it's seasoned. So one of the hard things to start out with is you have to save the down payment, you have to save the reserves, you have to save the closing costs, you have to save the money for immediate repairs, and that starts to add up, right? But if you can take the retirement account and show the lender you have $50,000 in there, so $25,000 of that will count as a reserve. Even that, I don't like the idea on your first or second deal. I did that on, so house deal, fifth deal, I used a retirement account as a reserve. So I dropped low enough. My checking account went down to like $200, right? But I had 80 something thousand in a retirement account, 17,000 in credit cards that wasn't used, and cash flow from 4 other rentals. That was more than what I used to live on. So I had, reached financial independence at that point. And then I did that. So the first one is because you're going to make a lot of your mistakes on that first, second, or maybe even third deal, right? That's when we tend to kind of make those mistakes. Later, it might be more beneficial to do that. What I would do now is if you have $50,000 in a retirement account, I would stop contributing above the match. Because for a while I was doing the maximum thinking I'm getting all these tax benefits because I'm going to be poorer in the future and taxes are going to be less because the government always lowers taxes. Yeah, that was stupid. So instead of maxing out the retirement account, and if you're not getting a match, maybe stop contributing to it and start putting all that money towards your next rental. Once you have 2 or 3 rentals, you've got some of your bigger mistakes out of the way. You've learned some really basic things: how to get a lease, screen a tenant, find a tenant, advertise for a tenant, maintain things, develop relationships with handymen and contractors in the area, get your list of emergency 24-hour-a-day response things for plumbing and that kind of stuff. And you have all that in place, and you have the experience of 2 or 3 rentals. I emptied out my retirement account in 2020. I did miss the 10% penalty because of the pandemic, but I think now I would have emptied it out even with the 10% penalty and put the money to work. And because I'm going to do that this year, I continued to contribute for the match because it was kind of free money. And there was like $11,000 in that account. I should check and see what's in there. But and now that this year that I don't have any W-2 income, I'm going to take that money out and put it to work in real estate. You have 50,000 in there if you're buying this duplex, and this is where stream of consciousness kicks in. If you don't own a house, you could take out up to 15,000 for an owner-occupied purchase. So if you're going to house hack the duplex, you might be able to take out 15% of your 401k without the penalty. Probably still pay the taxes, like talk with your tax pro before you do anything like that to figure out the actual repercussions. But that's one option if it's house hack and you don't already own a property. But if you already own a property, it's only supposed to work for first time purchase. Hope that helps. And I will end that statement with my thought that I always throw out when retirement accounts come up. They suck. There are 2 people who benefit from retirement accounts. Sometimes I think it's 3, but I think it's 2. I know for sure it's 2. First, the government. You lock up money in an account that they're going to tax later, or you lock up post-tax money that you can pull out that you'll be taxed and penalized if you take it out now to use later. 12% of people die before retirement age. So like there's actually bean counters who figure out the best way for the government to make money. And that's the first person who benefits from your retirement accounts is the government. The second is your employer. It's a retention tactic. How do we get our people to stay? We give them a match for their retirement account. Where do you think that comes from? That's money you could have been compensated with in your wages. Instead of it coming in your wages, it goes as a match to your retirement account, which encourages longevity of employment and benefits the employer. They don't benefit you. They're better than nothing if you don't invest in anything. But if you develop an investing strategy where you can get a return that's better, more consistent, and has way better tax benefits, like real estate, I would move that way. I must have missed a rent control question, so I'm going to scroll back up. Mr. Sethmo, howdy. Thank you for answering All Nighter Hider. I looked at it. You made a video recently suggesting that nationwide rent control would be good for landlords. Were you serious about that? If Congress left it up to you, what would you tell them? So it hurts tenants, and the tenants are the largest portion of the economy that don't want to hurt people. So I would say no rent control. If rent control was great, rent would be cheap in LA, in New York, right? It wouldn't be, there are some people, I've been renting here for 35 years and my rent has only gone up 10% every year. Yeah, so you're in California, your rent might be a little bit below. If you've never moved, never purchased, it limited you from getting on the property ladder. Like the average person, when they hit retirement age, if they own a house, just a house, not an investor, but a home buyer, the average net worth is $221,000. The average renter, the net worth is $6,800. This is a big difference between $221,000 and $6,800 just by owning a house. So encouraging people to be trapped in rent for a long period of time by keeping rents down hurts the renter for the ones who don't move. And landlords can be smart. They can go, look, I'm going to rehab the unit, so you got 90 days to get out. I'm going to sell the property, you got 90 days to get out. I'm going to move into the property, you got 90 days. So all kinds of ways to move the tenant if they don't want to move. Bigger apartments, probably not so much, but a lot of the investors who watch content like this don't own, 150, 300 units. Or 2% of a syndication. They actually own 1 or 2 rentals and are trying to get to 10 rentals, or they don't own any and they're trying to get to 1 or 2. The video, I was dead serious. It would make me rich. It would triple, and it would triple my rent increases, which would way more than triple my profit. So if I can put this into stream of consciousness thought without whiteboarding or prepping for the video, let me see if I can get this right. I talk about how a property management company can take 10% of your gross rents to manage tenant. That doesn't even count the money it takes to place them, those extra fees, right? Or the upsell when their handyman goes to repair something. Just the 10%. People say, well, it's not much, it's only 10%, right? Well, it's 10% of gross. It's like 50% of net. So the property manager often makes more than the landlord who owns the property on a 10% differential on gross. Imagine if rent control kicks in here in Washington. In that video, I was very serious. I raised the rents when there's not a black swan event like 2020, 2021, where you can't raise rents, there's a moratorium and all these things, and all of a sudden rents jack up really high. So I'm able to make an adjustment that year. I did 5% every other year. So if my rents averaged $2,000, I was doing a $100 increase every other year. Right? And it goes up because it's compound interest, right? So it's 2,000 adds 100 next year, 5% would, 2 years later would be, 110 or whatever. So it would adjust by that 100, 5%, 105. Like I can do math because I'm almost mad. So I'm gaining $100 every other year with a 5% increase every other year, basically $50 a year. If Washington institutes the rent control here and it's a 7% cap and I'm not able to adjust when a black swan event happens, I'm forced, in order to run a business without losing money and having to go bankrupt and the government not getting their tax money on their property taxes, to do that 7% increase or whatever the allowable amount is. In California, it's 5% max plus inflation up to 10%. So if inflation were 2%, you could do 7. But if inflation's been above 5%, like we've seen, you can do 10. So they would be 10% every year instead of 5% every other year. That doesn't double it. That times it by 4, right? 5% every other year versus 10% each year. So 7% each year here in Washington, instead of $50 a year, which would be my average, I would now do $140 a year to do that maximum. Because I can't do an adjustment when something weird happens, I would have to do that. So as an owner, you would go, oh, you must love rent control because it makes you rich. And I'm like, no, man, it sucks for the tenants. Think about it right now. There is rent control in California, and the stricter rent control is in Los Angeles County. Tell me where you can rent in California an affordable apartment if you are looking for one right now. Right. I wish I had a cricket sound to play it. Perfect timing for Millennial Mike to be jumping in here. Nice. I see we coordinated on color of shirts again. I like it.
Oh, yeah.
So, Mr. Sethme, I hope that answers your question. If Congress asked me, I would say absolutely not. What we need is more building, faster regulations, safety regulations, sure, but 15-month permit turnarounds on a approval of a plan to build a duplex, that shouldn't be happening in a crappy little town like Tumwater, Washington. Not that I'm going to name them by name or anything, but that's what we need. I don't know if you watch Meet Kevin, but he had maybe a spoof, but it seemed like he was actually running for governor of California when they were going to do the turnaround, the recall of Newsom. He had a really good video on things he would do to help fix the housing crisis. And it wasn't rent control. It was streamlining permits, and it was encouraging builds, and it was doing all those kind of things. You put rent control in a place like they did in St. Paul, where it actually hits new builds, and builders not only canceled future plans, they stopped mid-construction on plans, which limits the number of units, which increases or limits the demand, limits the supply in a place that already has demand. So what do you think is going to happen to prices of rents there? Yes, some people in places might be protected by that rent control, but it's going to hurt over time. So my answer to Congress would be that everything I just said. It would really make me rich if you put rent control in. Do you want to make landlords richer? No. We have all the tax benefits already. We want to protect tenants. And by doing that, we make it easier to make more properties. How's it going, Mike?
I'm good. I watched the live stream my whole drive home. I was at training all day and getting here as fast as I could. We went a little bit long. We did a couple of hostage rescue situations or scenarios. And yeah, so now I'm here. So, I'm still strapped up. I'll get out of it later when we're done.
Nice. I'm still strapped up too, and I didn't do any training today. So
yeah, so I wanted to jump in on two questions that I heard you already talk about.
Okay.
So number one, with the rent control, so there's the rent control that happened in the 70s where they literally fixed prices with no adjustments. And that is killer to landlords, because within 2 or 3 years, your property taxes and the cost of everything goes up and you've completely eaten through your profit. And then from there, what happens is people stop making repairs because they're already losing money. They can't even sell their properties because no one's going to buy an asset that doesn't perform. And that's why people eventually tried to burn their own buildings down just to claim insurance and had to pay thousands of dollars to get people to move out. That's a horrible type of rent control. This new version of rent control still isn't good, but even the government has realized, oh, well, if we do that, we're going to screw ourselves. So what we'll do is we'll call it rent control. We'll sell it to the voters as rent control. We're definitely going to try to hurt those landlords. But in reality, they're still allowing rent to go up. And when they pass that bill, all they're doing is forcing landlords to raise that rent. But nothing that gets passed through legislation actually is ever judged on its merit. It's never judged on the actual result. It's only judged on, well, was our heart in the right place? Were we trying to do the right thing for the little guy? So yeah, they'll say rent control all day long, knowing that if they institute what they're claiming they're going to institute, it's just going to be mandatory rent raises. We'll end up making more money. And then the second thing was All Nighter Hider. It said something about reductive self-liquidating debt. And you said, por qué? So what he's talking about is one of the main benefits of real estate. So real estate investing is reductive self-liquidating debt. And what that means is, when you put debt on an asset in 2023 dollars, 10 years from now, the 2033 dollars, the American dollar will have been inflated, will have gone down in value. So the debt itself is reductive because over time, your dollar it becomes less. You get to pay it off with inflated dollars. Number two, it's self-liquidating because it's an asset you put debt on, but you don't actually pay the debt down. The tenant pays the debt down. So not only do you get the benefit of inflation, you got to buy an asset frozen in time and then pay it off with, it becomes easier and easier to pay off as future goes on because the dollar loses value, but it's the tenants that are paying it off in the first place. So it's just a fancy Jason Hartman type way of saying all of the things that we talk about being a benefit to real estate investing anyways.
To follow up on Mr. Seth Mose, I see the comment here. My statement is consistent. It would be devastating to real estate. You'd stop having builds. Let's say it caused a crash in prices. That doesn't mean rents go down, right? Rents still continue to go up. During the last 6 recessions, 4 of them rents went up, and prices went up. So yeah, nationwide rent control would be devastating to the industry, but it doesn't mean landlords would hurt. Okay, see if I'm missing any other questions here. Laura, I did the binder method last Friday for the 3rd time. Tenants asked for no increase. Then I said, to be fair to both parties, thank you. Then they asked for a $100 increase. Thank you. So, right, it's a conversation. Sometimes I've had people say, well, what if the tenant suggests no rent increase or too small a rent increase? We just point out this is a conversation, and that sounds fair to you. But right, the question was, what do you think was fair, meaning to both parties? So if they've agreed to a $100 increase, I'm not sure what area average rents are in Florida. I have a friend who owns some rentals there, but I don't know what his rents are. I'm guessing that's not a terrible increase. Cool. Chris, I would think Chris, howdy. I think there would be more people with accounting finance degrees in real estate, but I don't know of any. So Zuber, I don't know of too many people with accounting degrees. I know some people who worked at the companies I worked at that were in accounting. None of them own rentals. A lot of them own their own property and had retirement accounts and were planning on that 65-year, age retirement. It's the same thought I have every time I think of real estate agents, right? They work in the industry. They see the financial freedom it creates. They have access to the networks of people. And over 90% of realtors never own a rental property. Like that's mind-boggling to me. And I'm going to clarify again before we get any comments, but every now and then it's going to look like me and Mike are looking at our phones like teenage girls. That's because that's where we see the chat, and that's where we respond to the chat. We don't have a really high-tech studio where we get to have a teleprompter or an assistant or any of that kind of stuff. The accounting degree might be a hindrance because you did all the work to get the degree. You probably want to work in the field that used the degree. All that, Hyder, good point. Financial Fighter, don't forget to send me the link for tomorrow. Tomorrow is Wednesday. I'll have to look at our emails.
Matt's telling me that I need to smile.
You look angry. Well, you trained.
Hey man, I'm tired.
You started. You don't have to hang out tonight. I appreciate you coming in. Actually, I just know you have some information that people like. So if you can hang it, that's great. If you need to crash, I totally understand.
This is the most comfortable I've been all day. I wore 70 pounds worth of gear and was in the freezing cold, walking through an abandoned building, getting shot at with simunition rounds, which for those of you who know what those are, they're like kind of a mixture between like a paintball, but hard plastic. It hurts. It's supposed to drive good habits.
It can scar you through your glove.
Oh yeah, they'll tear through clothes, gloves, everything. Yeah, you bleed. Unless you're good enough not to get hit, which is what we're training to be.
Oh my favorite sim, the last one we did was active shooter. You're going in, and anything that moves is a threat. So all of the people were behind cubicles. You couldn't see anything. So anything that moves is a threat. That's all you're told. And you go in. All it is you, and your partner comes in from the other side. Anything that moves is the active shooter.
Your buddy, right? Your partner.
Your buddy has to be and it was a test. Could you make the call that you were told no one is in the building but the active shooter, and that was rough. So you're 5 feet from each other, fully unloading everything.
It's tough. It's very, and unfortunately that happens in real life. That happens. Sometimes people get each other because you're in an extremely high stress situation where you're trying to make a split-second decision. You're trying to save lives, including your own. And yeah, it sucks.
Yeah. Maddie, howdy. Thanks so much for all the info. I've got one rental now, looking to close on second in the coming month. Can't wait to leave my W-2 behind you. Like you. Awesome. I can't wait to get you there too. Like I saw wandering, Doc is looking at pulling the trigger. I missed where the message went, but congratulations for coming to the dark side, wandering Doc. You will enjoy it. We have cookies. Let me know when you get there, when you pull the trigger and you stop working. It probably will take a month or two for this to settle in. I was expecting every day is Saturday, and I made the jokes every night is Friday night. So day of week really didn't matter. If it wasn't for live streams, I wouldn't know that this was Tuesday. So sometimes when I do the live stream with Lumberjack or Mike on Fridays, my brain says it's Tuesday because I'm doing a live stream. The time of day doesn't matter. That shocked me when that went away. 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the afternoon is exactly the same. Part of it, I'm living in Washington where it's cloudy all the time, so you can't tell what time it is. But I will text my friends, hey, what's going on? Did you watch the new episode of The Last of Us or whatever? It's 2 o'clock in the morning. And they still have a job.
Some of those texts from you, and I'm like, Dion, are you raiding till 3 in the morning? Like, bro, I'm trying to sleep, dude. I got to work at 5 a.m.
Exactly. So that was one of the 3 things that shocked me. So, trying to make sure to get to the questions here. Wombat Striker, howdy. A lot of people who work in finance work really long hours and already know stocks. So I think that route is easier for them than learning about watching listings for real estate. That totally makes sense. Laura, so Tom Kine, Michael Smith. It's very intensive and hands-on. I ran the bedroom to veterans with background issues. I must have missed. Question from Michael Smith. Howdy, Mike. What are your thoughts on a group of home businesses, house hack to cash flow your house investment? Sober, abuse, halfway, etc. Could get $600 a bed, 2 beds per room. It's a business. Are you an investor or an entrepreneur? If you want to be entrepreneurial, I have a friend who has 30 rentals and he was dating a girl and he purchased a place for her to do hospice at. She worked in the field and so she ran the business. They are not together, so I think it's hers now. But he's not an entrepreneur. He's an investor. He was a real estate agent who worked to buy rentals and then do nothing. So I don't see him running that kind of business. I don't see me doing. It's kind of one of the reasons why I haven't chosen to rent by the room or even do midterm rentals. There's this thing called the real estate X factor, right? The XY axis of the more work you're willing to do, the more money you're probably going to make, and the more risk you're willing to take, the more money you're probably going to make. So if you own a business like that where you can do 2 beds per room, manage, have staff, you're probably going to make the most money with the most time commitment and the most risk. Sober living, that means you're hopefully sober now, possibly on parole, right? You've got all these other agencies you're going to be dealing with. And then you work down to where you have employees do it, less money, all the way down to self-managing short-term, property management for short-term, self-managing midterm, property management for midterm, self-managing long-term, or property management for long-term. Kind of like, not that I know the numbers, but I know I can cipher the difference between Lumberjack landlord and Zuber. Their cash flow, I would think, significantly higher for Lumberjack landlord because he self-manages. And Zuber is writing 6-figure checks to property management.
Right.
Zuber's also taking a cruise and doing whatever he wants, right? And not handling the calls and not having. Me and Matt made a video this morning, which might have come out on his channel already. I haven't checked. The worst 72 hours of his landlording experience because they had the flash freeze where Mount Washington in that area is like negative 140 degrees or something. And he had frozen pipes. Zuber doesn't have any. He just left Phuket, Thailand while Matt's doing that. So it's that X factor. The more work you're willing to do, the more you're going to make. But is it worth it? That's the question. So, Millennial Mike, what do you
Yeah.
think of things like sober living, halfway house, that kind of stuff?
That's taken on a whole bunch of extra risk, and I think it's more like a business. Yeah, I mean, I'm for those types of things. I mean, I think it's great to have those types of institutions. It's just I don't want to run them. I don't want to deal with them. I actually don't even think I technically can. I'm only, I don't think I can technically do business with felons when I'm employed as a law enforcement officer. So there might be some conflict of interest there. But no, I mean, I'm absolutely all for second chances and helping those people out, but I definitely think it's not the type of real estate investing that I want to do. So.
Yep. I think we kind of agree on that. No Mondays, always Saturday. Howdy. Nice name. I like it. For taxes, does a commercial company like H&R Block work, or would you try to find someone who specializes in real estate? Before you close on your first rental, I suggest knowing a CPA, an E, whatever Matt has, an EA, that works on real estate and taxes specifically. And it's not just because they might get it right, you might get a better return and that kind of stuff. It's because they can talk tax strategies. When in your investing career will bonus depreciation make sense? When will a cost segregation study make sense? When will something like, hey, if you purchase this before the end of the year, this year is going to be better, or you should wait till after the end of the year to make this purchase because this year already looks good, or whatever the thing that they're going to suggest that an H&R Block person isn't going to find in the boxes that they check. That doesn't mean they can't do the taxes well. That's not somebody I would go to for tax strategy, which is years, decades of information. Mm-hmm. Mike, thoughts?
Agreed, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I was the guy who did TurboTax and did my own taxes for years. And then you buy real estate and you realize that, like Dion said, cost segregation or depreciation, there's different types of depreciation. You can depreciate things at different schedules, just to actually make sure that you actually take advantage of all of the different benefits that there are to investing in real estate. You want an actual professional on your side, someone who does real estate taxes for other people. So 100%, as soon as you buy your first house hack or your first rental property, you need to hire a professional. It's not going to be that much more than if you were paying for it on the TurboTax software anyways. I think I spent $800 on my tax guy to do returns in Indiana, Illinois, and the state of Washington for 2 separate W-2 income jobs and a total of 10 different units or 8 rental properties. I mean, and it was $800. It's worth the cost. Worth the cost.
I see that he's probably not here anymore because Matthew Paris says he just popped in to give us a thumb up, catch you in the future land, but he actually typed out the full sentence of the shirt.
Oh, we're trying to take over the world? What are we doing?
What are we going to do tonight? Exactly.
Same thing we do every day. I loved that show as a kid. Dion, you were probably in your 30s when that came out. Because I watched that when I was like 8.
Yep.
Kids.
It was an offshoot of the Animaniacs, right?
Animaniacs, yep. Kids WB, Warner Brothers. And then I'd watch Pokemon afterwards. Who's that Pokemon? Yeah, that was my Saturday mornings.
So my son is about the same age as you. Yeah. And when the Pokemon movie came out, it was so bad. When we went to the theater to watch it in the movies, we were the only people there. So they would never watch this much of my content. To this day, my kids think I rented the theater for my kids to watch it because everyone was talking about it, but there was no one there but us.
I saw the Pokemon movie in theaters when I was a kid too, and it was full. All right. You can hate all you want. I loved that movie.
Oh, I wasn't saying that. I was just saying. Wombat Striker, I really did gain some benefit from some of your advice on retirement accounts. Dion, I don't plan on cashing out my accounts, but I did realize that I've already reached Coast Fire. Look it up. Yep, Coast Fire. Without adding or contributing more to your retirement accounts, you will have a decent retirement based on what is already in there. Barista Fire is basically the same, except you're going to work part-time, probably in a job that you like, so it doesn't have to make a lot of money. Like 7 tiers to financial independence, retiring early, which I can make that video on, but I think it's been done 100 times. So I try to, when I can, come up with unique things. Like I've seen a lot of net worth videos. I haven't seen anybody talking about, you forgot taxes, you forgot the cost of selling, you forgot you're never going to do this, so why bother doing it? One Matt struck me. If you aren't familiar, but why keep locking up my money if I should already be able to reach the traditional retirement goal with what I have contributed? Exactly. That's the coast fire. Always strapped, always ready.
You gotta stay ready.
You're the least copyist cop I ever see when you're not on duty. You actually point out, you say, I look like a cop. And I've always got that too. I ran a truck driving school and they were like, oh, you look like a cop. It's the best insult to ever get. Always says max out your tax advantage accounts first, but maybe we should actually think about it now more. So I don't want tax advantaged accounts. I want tax advantaged assets. And that's real estate.
I max out a Roth IRA every year. So, and
which is like 6,000 a year or something like that.
$6,000 a year. It's the backup to my backup plan, right? So technically, right. I qualify for Social Security. I also have a pension through my regular job. Real estate's my primary plan. My Roth IRA is my fourth backup plan. But you won't hear me talk as much trash about it as some people. And here's the reason why. The large majority of people will never do the work to become a real estate investor. Almost nobody ever will. We are in the 1%. You should hope to be in the 1%. Like, this sounds cocky and arrogant, but like, to do what we're trying to do and what you in the chat are trying to do, you're essentially acknowledging that you want to put yourself on a higher level. You want to be in a league of your own. You want to take on additional responsibility and be in the 1% of income earners, of lifestyle. Retiring 30 years early is no joke. That's not for everybody. So I won't insult Roth IRAs or 401ks because so many people out there have no plan for retirement. And even if it is a significantly less beneficial plan than real estate, it is substantially better than just banking on Social Security. Like, I think that the 401k or Roth IRA is great for the large majority of people because there's so many out there who have zero plan. So I won't insult it for that reason.
So here's a somewhat sarcastic, altruistic explanation of trying to help people get to financial freedom and explaining why retirement accounts suck. Do you know why Social Security was invented?
It came in during the New Deal with Franklin Delano Roosevelt, when they brought a whole bunch of different social programs in, I assume to win a bunch of votes, pull people out of the Great Recession.
So that's the America version.
Right.
The worldwide version of Social Security came out in the 1800s in Germany.
Interesting.
The idea was there were too many people working and not enough jobs for younger people. So they came out with a plan in Germany where they said, hey, if you're over a certain age, we'll pay you to stay home. Let these young people get a job so we don't have it wasn't out yet, but Clockwork Orange is going to be a thing because these people don't have nothing to do. So older people can get out of the workplace to make room for the younger generations. It wasn't, we need a system to take care of people who are too old to work. It was, we need a system to get older people out of the workplace. Mm-hmm. Our job is to find people who are smart enough to invest and reach financial freedom in 10 years or less and get out of the workplace. Make room for those other people that need jobs. We are at the lowest unemployment rate in longer than my life.
Yeah.
This is since 1969, and everybody knows I'm 52. I was born in 1970, right? So longer than my lifespan, we are at the lowest unemployment rate.
You're 1 year older than my mom.
Nice.
To my father, Dion.
If I hadn't heard the stories about your mom, I would ask where she lived. I don't. No, never mind. I need some water.
Mr. Sathmo did thank you. He goes, Dion, thank you for taking my question on rent control. I don't always agree with what you say, but I always appreciate your comments and your thoughtful input. Keep up the good work. What a nice guy.
I appreciate that. I actually appreciate the question. The question wasn't like, hey, Dion, I think you're wrong. It was, Dion, were you serious? And we definitely don't agree on most things. Like, Mike invests at a distance. I want to invest in a more expensive area. We don't agree. Both strategies work. Michael Zuber and Matt the Lumberjack Landlord, and I think Millennial Mike, are more interested in recycling capital. I wanted to recycle cash flow. Like, there's a lot of different things here. There are probably owners who would rant and rave about how rent control would suck and we don't want more regulations. And I'm like, no, it would make me rich. I don't want it because it hurts the tenants. It's a different opinion. Doesn't make me right or wrong. This is my opinion. So I appreciate the questions and I don't mind being challenged. Come at me, tell me I'm wrong, do whatever. But I hear Zuber say this all the time. If you attack one of my guests, then we have to get rid of you. Like Jay, Jay made some funny comments for a few weeks. Was totally fine with it, but he made an inappropriate comment about the lumberjack, and now Laura Semeniago. At the end, it was $135 increase, still below 10% area average rate. So 10%, nice, cool. So an increase to you, good. That's awesome. And happy tenants. That's like the most important thing. Tiffany, howdy. I appreciate this comment. As a real estate agent, I understand real estate way better than stocks and mutual funds. I'm surprised more agents don't own investment properties. I know several who do. And then my chat moved. And I lost it.
I know several who do in my office.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's really interesting. I know several agents. I know a few who have rentals. I have a few who got their license so that they can get rentals, but I know a lot that'll never own a rental. And it's just confusing. Maddie, Mike, how about the lumberjack landlord with that stretched out header image on the homepage of his webpage? There you go.
Yeah, I'll go take a
banner.
look. I know some his guys put the website together, so I didn't actually put that together. So I'll take a look at it. If it needs some help, I'll roast him about it. He just told me that I should smile more because I look like I'm having stomach problems. So if I have an opportunity to flame him, I will.
Nice. And I see Price and Pride asked for recommendations on a CPA. Lumberjack hooked him up. That's the one he recommended me too. I currently have a CPA, which is really weird. I like to reward the people that I know with referrals. If you're a real estate agent and you've worked with me, I'm going to send you people in my area. You know, if you did good work with me, handyman, contractors, everything. That's what I want to do is connect them with more business. CPAs are weird. Mine said I don't want any more. Like, who runs a business that doesn't want to grow? Him. Mr. Nice Guy. First rental is 5% down conventional. I'm near 10% equity. Cash flow is great. Mortgage insurance, $113 a month. Should I get a duplex appraised to request PMI removed, or would the taxes go up if so much that it wouldn't be worth it? County tax assessor is not going to be reported the new appraised value. Generally, it's find out if your area is different, that your appraiser is going to also submit a form saying we appraised it and here's what it's worth. So those two aren't connected. The cost of the appraisal, how certain are you that there's enough equity? So you're near 10% equity. So if you're wanting to remove PMI on a conventional or an FH, so conventional, it should automatically go away at 22% interest. I know it sounds weird because if you put down 20% or more, you don't get PMI. But when equity hits 22, that's how mortgage insurance goes away automatically on conventional. It doesn't work on FHA. It stays till you refinance, sell the property, or pay off the loan. So 10% isn't going to help you. You need to be at 22%. So it doesn't sound like that's a problem you're going to have to worry about now. But I would maybe do the research and say, hey, talk to an appraiser, find a local real estate investor to connect with an appraiser and just say, I have a question, or ask your local investor group. If an appraiser appraises a property, is there something that they submit to the county tax assessor that says this is the new appraised value? That happens when you refinance to get the loan to purchase a place. I don't know that it hits their radar on an appraisal to pull off PMI though, because that's not a refinance. That's just a removal of mortgage insurance. Probably a great question for Matt the Lumberjack Landlord on Sunday morning at 8:30 Pacific. Hit him with the same question. There we go. And then, of course, I see a super chat from the Lumberjack Landlord.
Yeah.
I'll let you handle this.
He goes, the word I used was not stomach problems. It was constipated. Give these guys the smallest super chat to get the viewers over 100. The bigger the community, the better. That's right. He told me to smile because I looked like I was constipated. Well, Matt, when your hair was all messed up and you looked like a freaking zombie because you worked for 4 days in a row, I didn't jump on your live stream to say you look like trash. Appreciate you, buddy. God, you know what? I still have some unreleased pictures of Matt that I'm going to start throwing in random videos and up on Instagram so you guys can see the outtakes of when I was trying to get him some good thumbnail pics. This is how it's going to be. It's a war. In fact, I might even make you share your screen so I can throw one up in this live stream. Let me see if I got something on.
I can make
standby.
I think I can make you.
I'm going to take a look and see if I got something on standby because he needs to get flamed now. This is just too much.
You are now the host.
Sweet. All right. Well, if I need to share something, I'll let you know.
There you go. I mean, anytime we can pick on Matt, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
He has been so much help to me. I feel horrible about picking on him. I mean, I'm not going to stop. I'm just going to feel horrible. From Tadams, howdy. Question, maybe this is off topic, but I have an owner carry for 300,000, but I have to have 200,000 bridge. Are second loans possible to get a loan for? Second liens possible to get a loan for? Talk to different lenders, though lenders are made the same. There isn't an exact answer on what you can and can't do. I've actually seen people like Matt, the lumberjack landlord, develop loan products with his lender, depending on the relationship you have with them. Owner carry for 300, but you have to have 200,000 bridge. So that means, what do they have? They have a mortgage you need to pay off. Yeah, I think I would need more info. So I'm going to put my email in the chat.
Yeah. While you're putting your email in the chat, here's a little picture of our boy right here. Can we see this? Can we all see this?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, this was him saying, "Hey, let's make some fun of Dion with all of his buff guy thumbnails." So Matt decided to one up him. I got a couple of these. I got a couple of these right here. Watch yourself, Matt. You come trash talk me. I got more. Don't make me drop the good ones. The only lumberjack that when asked, "Hey, let's get your axe out so we can take some promo pictures," goes, "I don't know where it is. Hopefully this sledgehammer works."
We should see the sledgehammer videos too. Dividend Dave says, I do have a degree. Wish I got my degree in real estate instead. Nice. Making sure we're not missing any questions here. John, you replied to my earlier question, but my 50,000 is in an IRA. I have 130,000 in 401k and 150 in current home equity. That is why I'm wanting to invest the 50,000, so I don't have to wait for 2 years. Yeah, so you're not hitting all of your retirement accounts. How long has the money been the IRA? Because if it's the Roth, it's if it's over 5 years, you could take the principal out with no penalty, right? Once it's been there for 5 years.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Right, so it's not my strategy, so don't go off what I'm saying. The picture of Matt, the viewers dropped by 10, so we scared people away.
Whoops.
That's okay. That's kind of a scary guy. I get it. Yeah, you have enough in your 401k. So don't touch the equity in your house, because remember, if you've watched my content, calling it equity is what most people do. I call it the ability to put debt on an existing asset. So I don't know that I would do that, especially on those first couple of deals. It is how my brother did it. He took out a home equity line of credit, paid it off, took it out, paid it off, did it until he had 10 paid off rentals. So, I mean, it's a strategy that can work, but it's really putting your house, your retirement accounts at risk when you're probably going to make your bigger mistakes.
I didn't even get a chance to weigh in on your net worth topic yet for the day. So personally, I think net worth is a stupid thing. It makes no difference. It literally, there's nothing about it at all, with one exception. Once you cross the $1 million threshold, you become what's called an accredited investor. A CPA will sign off saying you have over $1 million in net worth, and you get opened up to accredited investor type investment funds. So that is literally the only benefit of going over $1 million, is that, okay, well, now you can take advantage in what's considered riskier, but oftentimes more profitable investments. Beyond that, net worth is a vanity measurement. There's literally nothing that it can do to help you. However, the book, The Millionaire Next Door, right here, does do some work with net worth. And I actually like to show the Money Guy Show. And I'm going to be doing my yearly video on my net worth update, because I track it. Because my mentor always bullies me. He wants me to track it monthly, and I tell him to pound sand. I'm going to track it once a year because I just don't care. But yeah, the way they calculate it in here in this book right here, you can figure out where you are based on your age. If you watch the show, The Money Guy Show, they will tell you average net worth by age for your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. So you can kind of track yourself where you're at. Millionaire Next Door, The Money Guy Show, they'll tell you want to be in the top 25% of your age group. I would tell if you have real estate, you should be higher than that. I mean, with my real estate, I'm in like the top 2% for my age group. And that's just with the limited portfolio that I have. So again, I really don't think I would much rather you track your cash flow than your net worth, because that's going to get you to retirement faster. Net worth does nothing for you.
That was the wrap up to my intro at the beginning. There was the 3 mistakes and the bonus. The bonus was, it doesn't freaking matter.
Right.
So I love it. I'm going to get to a question, but then I'm going to bounce on to one that just came in. And I lost it. I remember the question. I forget who asked it though. Do we have a software to track how our properties are performing? Do you use Stessa? I'm recently transitioning to Hemlane, so I've got 4 properties on there now. I'm not moving tenants onto it that aren't very tech savvy, and any tenants that I place from when I got it going forward are going to be on there. Not so much to track the performance. I mean, yeah, how about you? Do you use any kind of software to track the performance of your properties?
No, I mean, I keep my monthly rent rolls every single month, and I show what came in terms of income and what went out versus expenses. And then my property manager has and Matt says he hates this website. It's called Buildium. So I've used Buildium before. I don't like Buildium either. I think Buildium sucks. Their software sucks, but what it does is it does track income and expenses and costs and all that stuff. And you can put money into a property or pull funds out of a property. Not a huge fan of that. There's another one called Appfolio, and that one is much better. But still, according to Matt, it's not great. I can't remember what he uses. Is it called Open Door? I don't remember what it was. I can't remember. Matt, maybe it's, is it Open Door? I don't remember. You probably put it in the chat. Matt has one that's significantly better, but from what I remember him telling me about it, it's more expensive. So it's worth it if you have a bunch of properties, but really not if you have only a few.
So you can make this as simple or as complex as you want to. And if you hand me host back over, I'm going to share my spreadsheet. So I've never done this because I don't think expenses have ever been large enough for me to have to do this. But this is the spreadsheet that I've given out. I put my email in the chat earlier, so it'll also be pinned in a comment after this video is done being live. I've sent people, if you email me, I'll send the spreadsheet to you. It's very basic. It's like kindergarten simple. And the idea is, let me see if I share my screen here. I think that's it.
Yeah, Tom, we're competing with the president. We're going to take him out. With our 80 followers, we got him.
So you should be seeing in numbers or like an Excel spreadsheet now.
I can see it, yeah.
Okay. So basically, this is the blank version, right? So I would have one of these. The payment that comes in. So payment, I mean, this is how you pay for it. Credit card, cash, Apple Pay, Venmo, Cash App, whatever you used. The date, the company, the price, separate the tax because that's a different type of tax write-off than the price is because it's taxed. So it's 100% of the write-off, where this can be different. The total assigned to, so which property or business. So if I buy a camera, that's going to be a YouTube expense, right? Or if I replace something in a property, I put it on here. And then notes, define to the CPA, what is the purpose of this expense so that they can determine if it's amortized, bonus, scheduled, normal, or whatever type of depreciation you're going to use, or not even a write-off, right? So they can make that determination. Then I have the rents. So each property every month, so I have 16. So I'd have the name of the property next to it. So I just put units, but I would have literally the name of the property, probably the address or something. Then I have 2 columns because some of my tenants, about a third, are Section 8. So I have a payment that came in from the tenant, a payment that came in from the agency. Right? So I track this throughout the year. So what I could do very simply without using any kind of program that costs money or anything is just come here and go assigned to. So every time I put something in for my house in Yelm, I call it Yelm House, always spelled exactly the same. I could click on the order. So then all of these in a certain area would be those assigned to that property, right? So my properties would be broken down instead of normally I have it done by the date. So I know throughout the year where my expenses are. I could actually look at a property and go, okay, by this time this year, I have spent, literally take the total, equal sum, put the amount together, and then look at the rents and say, this year, this is what the cash flow looked like on this property. Here were the expenses. Here was the income. That's way more work than I've ever even thought of doing, but it's something you could use as something as simple as an expense sheet like this for. This is the expense sheet that was designed basically over a phone call with me and my CPA. This is the information they need. That's as detailed as it needs to be. Mm. And then I saw a question. Let me get rid of this so I can see the screen and watch. Hopefully it's not closed down YouTube. I've done that before. A question I saw down here that just came in was, Where did it go? From Javier. Howdy. Is there a percentage of loss that you can claim on your taxes so you can qualify for a loan every year? It's a great question. It's actually one I like to present to people because here's an example. In 2021, I made $128,000 in profit, but I carried forward an $8,900 loss. On my taxes, it looks like I lost $8,900. Mike, how was I still able to qualify for mortgages?
Yeah, once you put rental income on your tax returns, when the lender looks at a new property, they don't care about your income anymore. Once you've proven and you have a proven history that you are making money as a landlord, what they're going to do is they're going to look at the property itself and they're going to say, we can take 75% of the projected rent for that property. And if that rent from that property covers the loan, you're good. So you can continually get new loans forever. You know, people are concerned with their primary residence with their debt to income ratio. But once you start, and this is why it's great to start with a house hack, because you get to start claiming rental income on your original home purchase. Once you get that on a tax return, you go back to your lender and they'll say, thank you very much. Oh, you're looking at this duplex. Your payment's going to be $2,000. Each side's going to rent for $1,500. You're going to make $3,000. 75% of that's quick math, $2,500. It's probably not $2,500, but it covers what the payment is. And so then you get to qualify. So all you have to do is save the down payment. If you save the down payment, you're good.
So I say this often, and I say this in some shorts. It's almost like Congress is full of people who own properties who keep making laws that benefit people who own properties. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Here's an actual addition to that. The reason I was able to make so much money, and then in 2022, it was $203,000 in profit and still going to carry forward a loss, is because we don't only write off the things that we repaired and fixed and spent maintenance on, I spent maintaining a property. We get to write off the depreciation. So the properties appreciate, they become worth more money. Sometimes it can be flat, they can go down, right? They did in 2009, 10, whatever, right? So properties don't always go up. So sometimes you have they don't appreciate, but properties can go up in value. And then you'd get to tell the government, my buildings are a year older. I'm going to depreciate, 27 and a half years is the value of the buildings, and then divide it up by that. Each year I get to take that amount off of my income, making it look like I lost money, right? So I carry forward a loss, which means $8,900 from 2021 is going to count against the money that I made in 2022. And a lender doesn't use depreciation. They look at your income, they take out the write-offs, they do what Mike said, they take 75% of the income of your rentals and the one you're buying once you've been doing this long enough. And sometimes they'll require that you have 3 months remaining on the majority of your leases, which means 51%. But they take out the depreciation that you used on your taxes. It's amazing. Real estate is designed to help you do this. Maddie, howdy. Thank you again. And thank you for the super chat. To Mike, the lumberjack, you guys are legends. Thank you. Hopefully our information is helping. Let me know, Mike, if you catch a question that I'm missing.
Yeah, Jay Aguilar says, did you guys see my question? I scrolled way up. The only one I could see is him saying, Millennial Mike, do you have a certain time you come on? And I'm assuming he means, when do I do my live streams, which is something that Dion harasses me about constantly. So 2 questions that I do not have a scheduled live stream weekly. I have a very busy job. My schedule changes every 6 weeks. I can get called out on a SWAT call, and it happens. I'm thinking of trying to do Wednesday nights. I'm actually going to try to commit Wednesday nights. It would be probably 7 p.m. Pacific time, which would be really late for the East Coasters. So I don't even know if people will want that, but I could commit to Wednesday nights, 7 p.m. If people are interested in that, maybe we'll do it. But this weekend, this Saturday at 2 p.m. Pacific, myself, financial firefighter Mark Oshiro, and my mentor, Maskey Finance, we're going to do a live stream on Saturday at 2, and it's going to be completely focused on property managers. All 3 of us invest at a distance. Financial Firefighter has 14 units. Maskey has 20 plus. I've got 10. We all invest at a distance. We all use property managers. So what we want is to answer everybody's questions on how to find property managers, how to manage your property manager, because guess what? Dion and Matt don't have any experience with it. So you have to come to us if you want the goods. So Saturday at 2, I hope to see you guys there because we're going to try to answer everybody's questions.
Beautiful. We will have to mention that because I think we're doing a live stream on Friday on the Lumberjack Landlords channel, and we'll reference it again for the next day.
I'll even be there for that one. I got Friday out.
Nice. Perfect. I think I'll be at your house.
Oh, right. Oh yeah, that's right. Because we're going to do some shorts. Nice.
Yeah. It's not that I'm stalking you or anything. I like to
better clean.
Okay. Making sure I'm not missing any questions here. Yoder, I am learning here than watching the State of the Union. It's great to be a landlord. Still waiting for permission from Mike to say land god. You know, landlord word is a weird one where even the word trigger becomes a weird word where you say people don't like the word. Well, it has a definition. It's a word that's used.
Land king, land emperor, land god, whatever you prefer. My preferred pronouns are thee and legend, but I will also accept land and god.
There you go. So there's your permission, Yoder. All-nighter hider. In my opinion, the only politics that matter are local politics. Economy leads politics. Yeah, local politics actually do matter. Hopefully people are looking at their actual district that they're in and voting for the people that because the people who get the districts affect who people that gets into the larger offices. And it's be very specific. Here's my political advice, because for a decade I ran a truck driving school, testified to the higher ed committee, the transportation committee, was the College of the Northwest Career Colleges Federation, which is 112 vocational schools. Like, I got all involved in politics, which is why I'm never going to work in politics, because screw all of those people. Be specific when you're talking to a legislator. Never think you can reach out to them and just talk. It's like an agent. If you reach, and I heard this at the Cody and Christian Multifamily Strategy meetup a couple of weeks ago, and there's another one coming up in March, I think, or April. I'm not sure. It's coming up soon. But the presenter before me and Mike presented was talking about if you talk to an agent and you go, look, I want to buy a good rental, they can't help you. But if you say, I invest in this county, I'm looking for small multifamily, I'm going to use a yield calculation to make sure I want to pursue it. I like side-by-side units. I want good off-street parking. Like, this is what I'm looking for. He's very specific. That agent can actually help you. If you go to your legislators, let's hypothetically say you're in Washington State, and you say, there is a bill on the docket. It's called 1388, a proposed rental control bill in Washington State. Here's my opinion. Here's the impact it will have on me. Here's the impact it would have on tenants. Whether you support it or you're opposed it, now they can help you. That legislator on a local level in your district can actually have an opinion on a bill because you're a constituent. You're the person that's going to keep them in or out of office. That can be effective. Putting a post on Facebook, putting a post on BiggerPockets, making a YouTube video, none of that's going to have any impact. Talking to your local district representatives, whether you support it or you oppose it, is the only way you're going to have some impact. And actually know the bill, know that it's go to the website, go in your state, go to the website on any bill you like or don't like and find out where it's at in its status. It'll have proposed, tracked, approved in the House or Senate, which side it's from, where it's going, all that stuff. Come in with that knowledge in your communication, and you have a better chance of actually having an impact. Was that apolitical enough?
Yeah, if I even start to go down the road of opinions, I'm going to get you banned, myself banned. We're both
right. Yeah, it's not that hard to do.
This might end up in jail. I don't know. All I can say is the people who get into politics get into it for the wrong reason, and I just don't trust any of them. The rest of the real people, the good people, they stay away from it. The people who are in there for bad narcissistic reasons, and they lie.
I have a friend who did it perfectly here in Washington. The idea is you should become a state senator or representative and work, being there 2, 4, maybe 6 years to impact laws that you then have to live with once you get out. And it was Melanie Stambaugh. She was actually the youngest state representative in Washington's history. She did it for, I think, 2 things. And then now she is no longer in that industry. Perfect. She now has to live and run her business based on the laws that she impacted while she was there.
Was she blonde?
That is Melanie Stambaugh. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember.
She was Puyallup. She was the.
Oh yeah. I seen her at the fair one time, and I was like, I might vote for you. Say more.
you could have pulled her over when she test drove my Corvette. That was that would have been arrest style. But she's not in office anymore. We could say these things. Afro-capitalist. Howdy. Would you advise house hacking in a duplex if my Half of the duplex is the same price as my current single family house mortgage, but won't cash flow if I leave, living in an expensive market. So you've got the right question. It's once you leave, once you're not living in that duplex, what does the cash on cash return look like if both sides are rented out at area average rents? So you're not, well, you would start living for free because you could rent out your house. That's the question, is could your house rent out for profit or not? If you were living in the duplex, how would that impact your overall expenses? You're in a high cost of living area. If you're finding average deals that won't cash flow, I probably wouldn't pursue it, but now I would look for one that would cash flow some. Look at other strategies like the video I did with Tony earlier this week, where he rents to midterm rentals, where he was able to show he can actually turn a property that was a negative 10% return into like a positive 16 or 17% return by using a different strategy for renting. Look at houses with ADUs. You might have better luck finding one of those than finding a duplex. A lot of investors look for small multifamily. That misses the asset class of house with an ADU, but the numbers work just like a duplex. You actually have better lending because a house with an ADU actually counts as a single family house for loans. So you might even have a better down payment option that way. There's a bunch of different ways to look at it. I don't know that I would purchase something that was going to break even when I moved out, because is that break even as expense or break even after you set aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy? And what if rents go down in your area? Right? We say often they've never once gone down in a 5-year period market wide, but when the car manufacturers moved out of Detroit, when Silicon Valley took a bigger impact from the .com crash, if the Boeing terminal moves away from your location, or if you're in New York and some politician says, we don't want Amazon here, so we're going to tax them until they leave, and now the property values tank, your rents can go down. It's possible on a local market that they can go down. Do you want to own an alligator? All right, so we invest with conservative numbers, actually saying if I set aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy, although it is after I moved out and my units were rented out. So we do have that kind of not conservative thought process because you're going to rent them out. I don't know that I would pursue a break-even deal. Mike?
Yeah, I evaluate a house hack differently, but also a little bit the same. So you're probably in this case, you're not renting. In this case, you have a mortgage payment on your single family house. But the way that I tell people to evaluate a house hack is you got to live somewhere. How much are you paying for in rent? In my case, I was paying $1,800 a month in rent. And so when I first bought this duplex, it wouldn't have been a great investment. It wasn't going to cash flow. I had a $2,700 a month payment, one side rented for $1,600. So that meant that I would still have an $1,100 surplus. But when I moved in here, I also brought a roommate who paid me another $500. So I was able to go from paying $1,800 a month in rent down to $600 a month in rent. Now, even though it wasn't a great investment, it was saving me $1,200 a month. With that $1,200 a month, I saved to buy more properties. And then over the last 5 years, I don't tell people to plan on rent increases or appreciation, but over the last 5 years, it's gone from renting at $1,600 to $2,150 a side. So there's $550 extra, and I refinanced when rates were at historic lows and I got my payment knocked down. So now one side almost completely covers the entire mortgage. Now, some of that was planned, some of that was not planned. But ultimately, I think, what are you currently spending for your housing living cost? Okay, can you make that number smaller, and can you fix it? Because guess what? If I'd stayed at that same place that I was at before, rents at that place went from $1,800 to like $2,500. So even if it's not a great investment, if you were to move out, you have to live somewhere. Can you take your current payment, shrink it to as small as possible, and fix it? So that's how I would evaluate it, in my opinion. But it sounds like in this case, you're just literally moving from a house. You're not saving or gaining anything. You're just swapping.
Checking to see if we have any questions I'm missing here.
Thanks for being here, Laser Focus Solutions. He's a good dude. His name's Chris. He's been talking to me about some seller finance deals he's been working on. We've been going back and forth. Also, for those of you who don't know, because he actually tipped me off to this, there's a fake Michael Zuber account out there that's almost identical, has almost exactly the same amount of followers. on Instagram trying to scam people for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So do not fall for it. Make sure that the one rental at a time account you're following is the legit one. Mike's never going to message you and be like, you want to buy some crypto? Trust me, he doesn't even, barely can spell it. He doesn't know nothing about it. He's not trying to sell you crypto.
Yeah, they get pretty creative too. They come down. I think we had it on this channel like a week ago. It was a WhatsApp scam.
That was how we knew you made it. That was your moment of success. There was a fake
officially arrived.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're going to be wrapping it up here in the next few minutes. So Mike can go and get some sleep after his long day of training.
Hold on. Jay Aguilar says apparently he has one more question. Go up more.
Well, we have plenty of questions.
If you got a
big question.
Oh, maybe I can't.
Think it goes up that high. Jay, can you copy and paste it again into the comments?
Jay, I am trying to help you out, man. Dion wanted to leave you hanging. He was trying to get out of this live stream. He said he wanted to go watch the president talk and fall asleep.
We have a president.
Got a spy balloon.
Wait till they meet TikTok.
Question was, currently house hacking. Do you recommend somewhere to stay while your money, credit union, bank, oh man, this was terrible. Although I think I remember the question he was saying. I think he might have asked the question earlier, do you recommend putting your money somewhere? And I know Wealthfront accounts right now are currently paying 4.05% of their savings account.
And I saw that Laura Samaniago put that, I think it's Capital One or something has a 5% CD, 11-month CD. So would you put your money somewhere? The question was currently house hacking. Do you recommend somewhere to stay while you put your money in the credit union, bank, life insurance, cash value? No, I keep my money in a low interest bearing account because I want that motivation to buy the next deal. Mathematically, it might make more sense to put money in something that's going to get you some kind of a return. But what does it look like to take the money out? What kind of penalties are there? What's the timeline if you need to do it quickly? And how safe is the avenue of your investing if you're putting that money somewhere to get a return? For me, it's the bank. It's a low interest savings account. I get this little scratching itch at the back of my brain saying, you need to find the next deal, put this money to work. You're losing money to inflation. Probably not the right answer for most people, but it's how I've never gone for a high interest anything with the bank. Mike?
I was reading the Jay Aguilar question again. So is that what we're on?
Yep.
Because he has part two. Okay, so he writes, my neighbor is adamant about selling his house, but he wants way too much and it needs a lot of work. It would blow out my savings on a single family when I can buy multifamily. What would you do in my shoes, I imagine? Well, bro, this should be easy. Okay, take out the fact that it's your neighbor. Somebody wants to sell their house for too much. It's a lot of work. It'll waste all my savings, and I'd rather buy multifamily. Why are you asking us, dude? Sounds like you got the answer right there. So here's what I think might be happening. The deal hasn't gone to the market yet. He's talking to his neighbor, so he feels like, hey, I got an opportunity to get something here. Because sometimes that's how deals show up on your door. But if they're not going to actually give you a deal, then it's not a deal. A lot of the time, people will come to me and say, hey, I've got this seller financing deal. And seller financing is rare. Seller financing is the holy grail of real estate if you can get the right terms. Just ask Cody and Christian. But most of the time, these sellers are asking the dumbest terms ever. I had a guy who wanted to seller finance me 22 properties, but with a 30% down payment at a 9% interest rate with a 5-year balloon, overpaying for the properties. And I'm like, this guy must think I'm a stupid, uneducated, out-of-state buyer who's got big money bags and is just going to think, oh, it's a seller finance deal. It's great. No, the deal is not good unless the terms are actually good. But it's very tempting because you say to yourself, wow, I got a seller finance offer. This is amazing. Well, yeah, but actually look at what they're offering, because it might be hot steaming garbage, kind of like my YouTube channel. And you might want to avoid it, kind of like my YouTube channel. So yeah, if you can get good terms, like for instance, on a couple of the seller finance deal I have, it was 20% down, 5% interest rate, amortized at 15 years instead of 30. So that impacts the cash flow. But I bought the properties at such a cheap price, literally like 50% off, that because I bought them right, I now cash flow. They're like my two best cash flowing properties. So don't fall for the, oh, it's my neighbor's deal. Like if it's not good, it's just not good.
Exactly. Right. That was a question that was solved before you typed it out. You have some emotional attachment because it's your neighbor. You either want to own more property where you're at, or you want to help your neighbor out. I think what's going to help your neighbor out is his house sitting on the, or her house sitting on the MLS long enough for them to realize that's a ridiculous price, and it's not going to go for that. So before we wrap this up, I'm going to do the 1 hour giveaway, or you get to choose a book. Several times through this video, I took a drink from my mug. The first person after the live closes, so not in this chat now, in the comments below, to write the name that's on my mug in the comments wins. The race is on. Anything you want to wrap up, Mike? We got your live stream coming on Saturday, 2 p.m. Pacific, with the financial firefighter Mark, who I'm talking with tomorrow because he reminded me. Popped up in the morning.
Yeah, if I was going to give advice to people right now, it'd be keep being patient. That doesn't mean don't take action. It just means don't fall prey. So, like I got an offer in on a property right now. I just got an inspection done right now. It's probably going to be one that I have to let fall through. I had another offer in on another property. Then I got the inspection done. It might be one I have to let fall through. You're seeing weakness in the market. People are offering seller financing. You feel like you want to do something, but don't let the need to invest rush you into a poor decision. My buddy Chris, I mentioned earlier, Laser Focus Solutions. He's got a potential seller finance deal, and there's maybe some ways it might work, but it also to me sounds like maybe somebody's trying to take a little advantage of him. You got to remember, a lot of times these sellers who are selling some of their portfolio, they're not selling their winners, right? They're selling some of their lower performing properties. So don't fall prey to that. Nobody cares more about your money than you. It's your job to be an expert in the market. You need to do the work so that you can know what average is and then only buy great deals. And if you can get them seller finance, great. If it has to be traditional, great. But don't get too excited and do something that you're going to regret down the line. Okay? Because then we'll have to have a different conversation about how to get out from under it, and that won't be fun. Also, thanks for having me, Dion. It was a good time. And Matt's probably still making fun of me because I see messages popping up.
Nice. Thank you a lot. I appreciate when you come and hang out. I look forward to being on your channel for your live streams, and we'll figure out a time that works for your schedule. If it's on Wednesdays, maybe once in a while, you'll have me pop in.
Oh, yeah.
And answer some questions. So thank you all very much for coming to the live stream. I have some videos coming out with Dana from Hemlane and Mark from Hawaii that we're going to make tomorrow. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.